Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from, and you can support the channel by clicking thanks or joining. I used to believe that routines made life safer. The same alarm every morning, the same coffee shop, the same train home every night. After 12 years working late shifts as a systems analyst in downtown Chicago, the last train on the red line had become my second home. It was quiet, predictable, almost comforting in the way something empty can feel safe. That belief ended the night I noticed the passenger who never got off. My name is Daniel Carter. I am not special. I am not brave. I am not the kind of man who believes in ghosts or curses or things that follow you home. At least I was not. Every night at 11:47 p.m., I boarded the train at Lake Station and rode it north to Sheridan. 8 stops, 23 minutes. I knew every flickering light, every screech of the rails, every ad peeling off the walls. I could have ridden that train with my eyes closed. That was why I noticed him. He sat in the last car, always the last car. A tall man wearing a dark coat that looked too heavy for any season. His face was pale, stretched tight like it did not quite fit the bones beneath. He never looked at his phone, never slept, never moved, just sat there, hands folded, eyes fixed straight ahead as if watching something only he could see. The first night, I thought nothing of it. Chicago has no shortage of strange people, especially after midnight. The second night, I noticed he was sitting in the exact same seat. The third night, I realized something that made my skin prickle. He was not blinking. I started paying attention. The train would stop, doors would open, people would shuffle on and off. The man never moved. His eyes stayed open through every stop, every light change, every jolt of the car. When we reached Sheridan, I stood, adjusted my bag, and stepped toward the door. For reasons I could not explain, I looked back. His head was turned toward me. I froze. Our eyes met for the first time. His pupils were dark and deep, like holes punched through his face. There was no anger in them, no curiosity, only recognition, as if he had been waiting for me to notice him. The doors closed. The train pulled away. I stood on the platform longer than I should have, my heart pounding, telling myself I was tired, telling myself it meant nothing. But the next night, he was there again. Same car, same seat, same coat. This time, when I boarded, I felt it immediately. That pressure between the shoulders, the instinct that tells you when someone is watching. I did not look. I sat 3 rows away and stared at the window, watching my own reflection shake with the motion of the train. Halfway through the ride, the lights flickered. When they came back on, I saw his reflection behind me. He was smiling. It was not a wide smile, not a threatening one. It was small and tight, like a secret being shared without words. My reflection showed me staring back, pale and stiff, my breath fogging the glass. I got off 2 stops early that night. I walked the extra blocks home in the cold, telling myself I was overreacting. That fear feeds on attention, that if I ignored him, he would disappear back into the background noise of the city. He did not. Over the next week, I saw him every night, No matter which car I boarded, he was always behind me, sometimes 2 rows back, sometimes across the aisle, always close enough that I could feel him without looking. I started changing my routine, leaving earlier, leaving later, boarding different doors. He adapted without effort. One night, I forced myself to stand directly in front of him, up close. His face was worse. His skin looked dry, cracked like old paint. His eyes were bloodshot but still unblinking. I could see veins crawling along the white, like something trying to escape. The train lurched. He leaned forward. "Daniel," he said my name softly, like he was tasting it. I stepped back so fast I nearly fell. My heart hammered against my ribs. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. "How do you know my name?" I asked finally. He tilted his head. His smile widened just enough to show teeth that were too even, too white. "You always get off at Sheridan," he said, "but you will not tonight." The doors opened at my stop. I ran. I did not look back. I did not wait. I pushed through the crowd and sprinted up the stairs, my lungs burning. I did not stop until I was inside my apartment. The door locked, the chain secured, my back pressed against the wood. That was the first night I realized something was wrong, because as I stood there, shaking in the dark, I heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside my door. Slow, measured, familiar. I did not sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment felt amplified, stretched thin by fear and imagination. The hum of the refrigerator sounded like breathing. The pipes knocking inside the walls felt like fingers tapping. Testing. I sat on the edge of my bed until sunrise, staring at the door, waiting for the handle to turn. It never did. By morning, embarrassment crept in, mixing with exhaustion. I told myself I had panicked, that footsteps in an apartment building meant nothing. Chicago buildings were old, noisy, full of people coming and going at all hours. I showered, dressed, and went to work as if the night before had not cracked something open inside me. But all day, I felt watched. Every reflection in a dark computer screen made my stomach tighten. Every time someone said my name, my pulse jumped. I avoided the windows. I avoided the elevators. I avoided thinking about the train. At 10:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification from the transit app. Red line service running normal. Normal. I considered calling a cab. The cost alone made me hesitate. I had taken that train thousands of times. One strange man did not get to rewrite my life. Fear only grows when you feed it. That is what I told myself as I stepped onto the platform at Lake Station. The air was colder than usual, carrying the metallic smell of brakes and oil. The platform was mostly empty. A woman with headphones stood near the edge, swaying slightly. 2 teenagers laughed too loudly at the far end. The digital clock ticked down the minutes. When the train arrived, I forced myself into the middle car. I did not see him at first. Relief washed through me, warm and dangerous. I chose a seat near the door, facing outward. The train lurched forward. The city blurred past the windows. 3 stops passed. Then the lights flickered. My chest tightened before I even turned. I did not need to look. I felt him. He was sitting across from me. Different car, same coat, same pale face. His eyes locked onto mine immediately, as if he had been waiting for me to notice. His mouth did not move, but his smile was there, stretched thin with patience. I stood up, He stood up at the same time. The timing was perfect. Too perfect. I stepped toward the door. He stepped toward me. People shifted uncomfortably, glancing between us. I could feel the weight of their attention, but none of them spoke. The train stopped. Doors opened. I stayed inside. So did he. The doors closed again, sealing us together. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. My voice sounded small in my own ears. He leaned closer. I could smell something old on him, like damp paper and rust. "You noticed me," he said. "That is how it starts." My hands trembled. I looked around for help, for anything solid. Everyone else avoided our corner of the car, eyes down, shoulders turned away, as if whatever stood in front of me did not exist to them at all. "What do you want?" I asked. His eyes flicked briefly to the window, where our reflections floated in the glass. For a moment, I thought I saw more figures behind us, pale shapes standing shoulder to shoulder, filling the car. "I want to get off," he said. My throat went dry. "You never get off," I whispered. His smile faded. "Not until someone takes my place." The train screamed as it curved through a tunnel. Lights strobed. Shadows jumped across his face, and for a split second, I saw something wrong beneath the skin. Something stretched, something layered. The lights steadied. He was smiling again. When the train reached Sheridan, my stop, I did not move. I stayed frozen in my seat, every muscle locked. The doors opened. Cool air rushed in. He stepped toward the exit. Then he stopped. "Not yet," he said softly. "Soon." The doors closed. The train pulled away. I sat there long after the stop had passed, my body shaking so hard my teeth chattered. I rode the train to the end of the line and back again, before I finally forced myself off at a different station. I took surface streets home that night, staying under streetlights, flinching at every shadow. When I reached my building, I checked the hallway before stepping inside. Empty. I locked the door. I checked it twice. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message contained only one line. "You almost got off." I stared at the screen until it went dark. That was the night I understood the truth. The train was not where it ended. It was where it began. I tried to convince myself the message was a prank, a wrong number, a coincidence so cruel it only felt personal. But deep down, I knew that was a lie. The words, "You almost got off," echoed in my head all morning, repeating in the same calm tone he used on the train. I did not go to work that day. I called in sick, my voice unsteady, and spent hours searching the internet for anything that might explain what was happening to me. Urban legends, transit rumors, missing person reports. I told myself I was just curious, but the truth was simpler. I was looking for proof that I was not alone. By noon, my coffee had gone cold and my living room was littered with open tabs and half-read articles. Most of it was useless. Ghost stories told by teenagers, creepypasta forums recycling the same tired ideas. But then I found a local news archive buried behind paywalls and outdated layouts. The headline stopped me cold. "Man found dead on red line after riding train all night." The article was from 14 years ago. The victim was a night shift accountant named Thomas Reed. He had boarded the red line after work and never made it home. Transit workers found his body slumped in the last car at the end of the line the next morning. No signs of violence, no cause of death listed, just one strange detail. Witnesses reported seeing Reed speaking to someone who was not there. My hands trembled as I scrolled. Another article, another year, another name. Emily Harper, Wenda 6. Graduate student rode the train past her stop multiple times. Last seen sitting alone in the final car. Found unresponsive at the terminal. Marcus Bell security guard. Same pattern. Always the last car. Always after midnight. Always someone who noticed something they could not explain. I leaned back, my heart racing. These were not accidents. They were not random. Whatever followed me was not new. It had been riding that line for years. Waiting for someone to notice. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You are learning fast. I dropped the phone as if it had burned me. It skidded across the floor, coming to rest against the wall. I did not pick it up for a long time. That evening, against every instinct screaming at me to hide, I went back to the station. I told myself I needed answers. That fear had already taken too much from me. If I was going to be hunted, I wanted to understand the rules. The platform felt different that night. Quieter, heavier. The fluorescent lights hummed with a low, uneven buzz that set my teeth on edge. There were fewer people than usual. A man in a janitor uniform mopped the floor near the stairs, his movements slow and mechanical. When I asked him about the last train, he paused. "You ride it every night, don't you?" he said without looking up. My blood ran cold. "How do you know that I asked?" He finally met my eyes. They were tired, afraid. "Some people belong to it," he said. "Once it notices you, it does not forget." Before I could ask what he meant, he turned away and pushed his cart down the platform, disappearing into a maintenance door marked "Employees Only." The train arrived with a shriek of metal. I stepped inside. The last car was empty. For a moment, hope flared in my chest. Maybe he was gone. Maybe knowledge had broken whatever hold he had on me. The doors closed. The lights dimmed. He appeared in the seat across from me without sound, without movement, as if reality had simply decided he belonged there. "You should not dig into old stories," he said calmly. "They have a way of digging back." I swallowed hard. "What are you?" I asked. He looked almost amused. "I am a passenger," he said. "Just like you." The train sped through the tunnel, faster than normal. The station signs blurred past. Unreadable. I watched the map above the door in horror as stops began to disappear. Sheridan vanished. Wilson vanished. The line shortened, folding in on itself like a closing fist. "This line does not end where you think it does," he said. "It ends where people give up trying to leave." I felt the floor vibrate beneath my feet. Outside the window, the tunnel walls were changing. Old brick gave way to darkness, then to shapes that looked carved, not built. Symbols etched deep into stone, glowing faintly as we passed. I clutched the seat, my knuckles white. "Who built this?" I whispered. He smiled. "Passengers." When the train finally slowed, I realized with sick certainty that we were no longer underground. Through the window, I saw an open platform under a black sky with no stars. The doors did not open. He leaned closer. "This is where most people get off," he said. "Not because they want to, but because they cannot keep riding." The train began to move again, and I understood that whatever waited at the end of the line was far worse than the thing sitting beside me. I stopped believing in coincidence after that night. The train was no longer just a train. It was a boundary, a test, and somehow, without meaning to, I had already failed it. I rode the red line every night that week, not because I wanted to, because I was afraid of what would happen if I did not. Each time, the experience was slightly different, like the train was adjusting itself around me. Sometimes the cars were crowded, packed with exhausted faces staring through phones. Other nights, I was completely alone. But one thing never changed. He was always there. Sometimes he sat across from me, sometimes behind me. Once, I felt his breath against my ear, even though I could see him seated at the far end of the car. The rules of distance did not seem to apply to him. I started to notice the others. At first, they looked normal. Office workers, students, people carrying bags and backpacks. But if I watched closely, too closely, something felt wrong. Their movements repeated in subtle loops. A woman adjusted her scarf every 30 seconds. A man tapped the same message on his phone without ever sending it. None of them reacted when the train lurched violently or when the lights flickered into darkness. They did not react when he spoke either. One night, as the train slowed between stations, I heard whispers. They came from everywhere and nowhere. Soft, overlapping voices murmuring words I could not understand. The sound crawled along my skin, raising goosebumps on my arms. "What are they saying?" I asked him. He did not answer immediately. "They are remembering," he said finally. "This is where people come when they cannot let go." I stared at the passengers around us. Their faces were slack now, eyes unfocused, like mannequins posed to resemble life. "Are they dead?" I whispered. He smiled faintly. "Some are," he said. "Some just wish they were." The train stopped at a station I did not recognize. The sign above the platform flickered between names that meant nothing to me. Letters rearranged themselves, refusing to settle. The doors opened. No one got off. No one got on. I could see the platform clearly. It was cracked and stained, older than the rest of the system. The walls were covered in layered posters so old they had fused into a single peeling mass. The air outside looked thick, almost liquid, like fog trapped in place. "If I step out there, what happens?" I asked. He leaned back in his seat. "That depends on how much of you is still yours." The doors closed. My hands were slick with sweat. I realized I had been clenching my jaw so hard my teeth ached. "I need to stop riding this train," I said. "Whatever you are doing to me, it ends now." He laughed quietly. "You think riding is the problem," he said. "The train noticed you long before you noticed it." That night, I tried something different. When the train slowed near the midpoint of the line, I stood and pulled the emergency handle. The alarm screamed. Red lights flashed. The train shuddered violently before grinding to a halt inside the tunnel. The other passengers did not react. Not one of them looked up. He rose slowly to his feet. "That was a mistake, Daniel," he said. The lights went out. In the darkness, I heard movement, not footsteps, sliding, crawling, breathing too close to my face. Shapes brushed past me, cold and wet like something dragged up from deep water. When the lights came back on, the car was empty. Only him and me remained. The walls of the car were different now. The metal looked corroded, eaten away by time. Scratches covered every surface, names carved deep, layered over each other, some still bleeding rust. "These are the ones who panicked," he said, running a finger over the marks. "The ones who tried to leave the wrong way." The train began to move again, even though I had not released the handle. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice barely steady. He turned toward me, his expression almost gentle. "You are learning the route," he said. I realized then that the map above the door was gone. In its place was a single word, glowing faintly. "Next." The tunnel outside twisted unnaturally, bending downward like a throat swallowing us whole. The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest. I thought of Thomas Reed, Emily Harper, all the others who had ridden too long, or not long enough. "What happens when we reach the end?" I asked. He looked at me for a long time before answering. "There is no end," he said, "only exits." The train accelerated, and for the first time since this began, I felt something worse than fear. I felt chosen. Time stopped meaning anything after the emergency brake failed. The train moved when it wanted to move. It slowed when it decided to slow. I could no longer tell how long I had been riding. Minutes felt like hours. Hours folded into something heavier and thicker that pressed down on my thoughts. The man sat beside me as if nothing had changed. I stopped asking where we were going. I stopped asking how to leave. The answers came whether I wanted them or not. The first new passenger appeared without warning. The train was empty except for us when I noticed a woman standing near the doors. She wore a hospital gown beneath a winter coat several sizes too big. One sleeve was torn. Her feet were bare and dark with grime. She stared straight ahead, lips moving silently. She did not look at me until the train jolted. Her eyes widened in recognition. "You can see me," she said, her voice cracked with relief. He nodded slowly. "This one still remembers herself," he said. The woman stepped closer. I could see needle marks along her arms. Her hair clung to her face in damp strands. "I got on years ago," she said. "After my shift, I was so tired. I just wanted to sit down." She laughed weakly. "I never got off." My stomach twisted. "What happens to you?" I asked. She hesitated. "At first you keep riding," she said. "You think if you stay alert you can leave, but the train wears you down. It shows you things you wish you could forget. Eventually you stop trying." She looked past me toward the dark tunnel rushing by. "That is when it starts using you." The doors opened at a station that looked almost normal. Fluorescent lights, clean tiles, a sign that read, "Exit" in plain lettering. My heart leaped. I stood. He did not stop me. The woman grabbed my arm. "Do not," she whispered. "That door is not for you." I hesitated. The platform looked real, solid, safe. A man stepped on from the platform. He wore a business suit and carried a briefcase. His face was gray with exhaustion. He sat down immediately and closed his eyes. "Welcome back," the woman said softly. The man did not respond. "He is not new," she said. "He just forgot." The doors closed. The sign above the platform flickered and changed. "Not exit. Replace." I staggered back into my seat. The man beside me finally spoke again. "You see now," he said, "the train does not take people. People give themselves to it." "Why me?" I asked. He studied me. "Because you noticed," he said, "and because you kept riding." The woman began to fade. Her edges blurred like smoke pulled by a draft. Panic filled her eyes. "I am getting close," she said. "I can feel it. Close to what I asked." She smiled sadly, to not caring anymore. With that, she was gone. The air felt emptier after she vanished. Thinner. The train slowed. Outside the window, I saw faces in the darkness. Dozens of them pressed close together like reflections layered over reflections. Some screamed, some stared blankly. All of them looked familiar. They were the names carved into the walls. "This is the part where most people break," he said quietly. The doors opened again. This time the platform was wrong. It was wide and endless. No walls, no ceiling, just darkness stretching outward. Figures stood scattered across it, some motionless, some pacing in circles. "If you step out there," he said, "you will join them." I stayed seated. "Good," he said. The train lurched forward. I realized then that he was not my enemy. He was my replacement. When the lights dimmed again, I felt something settle into me. A weight, a presence, as if the train itself had leaned in close. I knew the next time the doors opened, I would have to make a choice, and whatever I chose would decide who I became. The change did not happen all at once. It arrived quietly, slipping into me between stations, between breaths. At first it felt like exhaustion, a deep ache behind the eyes, a heaviness in my limbs that no amount of shifting in the seat could relieve. Then it became something else. I started to understand the train, not in words, in sensations. The subtle tilt of the floor before a stop that was not on any map. The way the air thickened when the doors were about to open somewhere dangerous. The faint vibration that meant a passenger was about to appear. He watched me closely as this happened. "You are listening now," he said. I had not realized I was. The woman in the hospital gown never returned. Neither did the man in the suit. But others came, one by one. Some stepped onto the train, confused and frightened. Others appeared already broken, their faces dull with resignation. I saw a teenager clutching a cracked phone, scrolling through messages that never changed. A construction worker with hands permanently curled, as if still gripping tools. An elderly woman rocking slowly, whispering a name I could not hear. They could see me. That was new. "Please," one of them said. "Do you know where we are?" I opened my mouth to answer. No sound came out. I tried again, forcing the words. "You are on the train," I said. "You need to get off when you can." The man beside me shook his head. "Careful," he warned. "You are not a guide yet." Guide. The word settled uncomfortably in my chest. "What am I becoming?" I asked. He did not answer directly. "I will show you something," he said. The train slowed. The lights dimmed to a sickly yellow. Outside the window, the tunnel widened into into a vast open space, like an underground cathedral carved by hands that did not care about symmetry. The doors opened. This station was different. The platform was crowded. Dozens of figures stood there, facing the train in perfect silence. Their eyes followed us as we rolled to a stop. Some were solid, others flickered like bad reflections. I recognized faces from the articles I had read. Thomas Reed, Emily Harper, Marcus Bell. They had been here all along. Why do they not get on? I asked. Because they already chose, he said. Chose what? He looked at me. To stay. One figure stepped forward, a young man with hollow eyes and a familiar slouch. I knew him. Evan. We had worked together years ago. He had vanished without explanation. People said he moved away. He smiled weakly when he saw me. You see it now, don't you? He said. I stepped toward the doors before I realized what I was doing. Evan raised a hand. Do not come out here, he said. This platform feels like rest, but it is just waiting without movement. The doors closed. The platform fell away into darkness. I sank back into my seat, shaking. You knew him, he said. I nodded. That makes it harder, he said. And easier. How? Harder to leave, easier to replace. The train surged forward. I started to notice the rules. Passengers who kept their eyes down lasted longer. Those who stared too long at the windows faded faster. People who talked to each other attracted attention from the dark spaces between cars. And me, they started watching me, not with fear, with hope. I began to feel the pull when the doors opened, a strange urge to stand, to speak, to decide. When a young woman boarded, sobbing, I felt the words rise unbidden. Sit down, I told her gently. Breathe. Do not stare at the glass. She obeyed. The train shuddered approvingly. I recoiled. Did you feel that? He asked. Yes, that is the train responding, he said. It listens to those who belong to it. I clenched my fists. I do not belong to it. He smiled, not unkindly. None of us do at first. The next station came without warning. The sign above the doors read, Observe. The doors open. Inside the car, something shifted. I could feel eyes on me from places that did not exist a moment before. The walls seemed closer, the ceiling lower. This station is for learning, he said. Watch! A man stood abruptly and ran for the doors. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the platform changed. The solid floor dissolved into darkness. He screamed as he fell, his voice stretching unnaturally before snapping off. The doors closed. The other passengers stared straight ahead. That is what happens when you choose blindly, he said. I swallowed hard. Why are you showing me this? Because you are close to understanding, close to taking my seat. My heart pounded. And what happens to you? He looked away, for the first time uncertain. I get off. The train accelerated, and the weight inside me grew heavier. I realized with cold clarity that the longer I rode, the more the train was teaching me, and the more it taught me, the less human I felt. By the time the train reached the next station, I no longer felt like a passenger. I felt like a problem that needed to be solved. The man who was meant to replace me sat across from me in silence. He watched my hands, my posture, the way my eyes tracked movement in the car. I realized with a dull sense of dread, that he was measuring my progress, the way a teacher watches a student approach a final exam. "You are hesitating," he said. I did not deny it. Every instinct I had left was screaming at me to resist, to stop listening, to stop learning. But the train did not reward resistance. It punished it with repetition, with endless loops of fear that ground people down until they stopped caring. The doors opened. The station sign read "D'ici." The platform beyond was narrow, barely wide enough for a single person to stand. Darkness pressed in from all sides, thick and suffocating. A cold wind blew through the car, carrying whispers that brushed against my thoughts like fingers. A new passenger stood near the doors. He was young, early 20s, a college hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder. His eyes darted around the car, panic rising fast. "This is not my stop," he said. I missed my stop. I stood before I realized I was doing it. "Sit down," I said. My voice carried, not loudly, but firmly, the way authority does when it does not need to shout. The young man froze. He said. "I just need to get off." The man beside me tilted his head. "Now we will see," he said. The whispers grew louder. I felt the pull again, the urge to guide, to intervene. "If he gets off here, he will not die," I said. "No," he agreed. "He will stay." The distinction chilled me. The young man looked at me with desperate hope. "You can help me, right?" he said. I saw the truth then. Helping him meant choosing for him. The doors remained open. I thought of Evan, of the woman in the hospital gown, of the faces pressed against the windows. I thought of myself. I shook my head. "Sit down," I said again. He hesitated. Tears welled in his eyes. Then he obeyed. The moment he sat, the whispers stopped. The wind died. The station sign flickered and vanished. The doors closed. The train surged forward, smoother than it ever had before. I staggered back into my seat, nausea rolling through me. "What did I just do?" I asked. "You spared him for now," he said, "and you chose the train." I stared at my hands. They felt heavier, different. The next passenger did not wait for instruction. She ran. A middle-aged woman bolted from her seat the moment the doors opened at the following station. The sign read "Escape." She screamed as she crossed the threshold. The platform twisted. Her scream cut off abruptly as the darkness swallowed her. The doors closed. No one moved. No one spoke. I swallowed hard. Could I have stopped that, I asked. He looked at me. "You chose not to." The weight inside me settled deeper. The train slowed again. Another station. The sign read "Replace." This time, he stood. "It is time," he said. My heart pounded. "For what?" "For you to understand what you are willing to become." He stepped toward the doors. They did not open. He smiled faintly. "Not yet." He turned back to me. "You think I follow people," he said, "but that is only the beginning." "What happens at the end?" I asked. He leaned close, his voice almost kind. "At the end, someone stays, so someone else can leave." The lights dimmed. The passengers around us began to blur, their forms stretching like reflections pulled too thin. I could feel their attention focused on me now, waiting. The train was asking a question. I did not know my answer yet, but I knew one thing with terrifying certainty. I was no longer sure I wanted to leave. The train did not rush me. That was the cruelest part. After after the station labeled replace. Nothing dramatic happened. No screaming passengers. No twisting platforms. The train simply continued forward, steady and patient, as if it knew time was on its side. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, feeling the eyes of every passenger in the car settle on me when they thought I was not looking. Their expressions had changed. Fear was still there, but it was layered with something else now. Expectation. The man who had guided me until now remained silent. He no longer needed to explain the rules. I could feel them. They pressed against my thoughts like memories I had always carried. The doors opened at the next station. The sign read "Choose." The platform beyond was wide and brightly lit, almost welcoming. 3 figures stood there, separated by equal distance. A young mother holding a crying child, an older man gripping a cane, his hands shaking, and a teenage girl clutching a backpack to her chest, eyes darting back and forth. They all looked at me, not the man beside me. Me. Why can't they decide for themselves? I asked quietly. Because you already did, he replied. The whispers returned, low and insistent. Fragments of thoughts brushed against mine. Regret, fear, hope. I stood, my legs trembled, but they held. The young mother spoke first. Please, she said, I need to get home. My baby is sick. The older man swallowed hard. I am tired, he said. I just want to rest. The girl said nothing. She only stared at the train floor, tears dripping onto her shoes. The rules unfolded inside me. The train did not care about fairness. It cared about balance. 1 could leave, 2 would stay. My stomach churned. If I choose wrong, what happens? I asked. The man beside me did not answer. The train did. The lights flickered. The floor vibrated. A pressure built behind my eyes, sharp and punishing. Choose. I approached the edge of the doors. The mother met my gaze with desperate intensity. The baby wailed louder, the sound cutting through me. The older man leaned heavily on his cane, his face gray with exhaustion. The girl finally looked up. Her eyes were calm, too calm. You are already gone, aren't you? I asked her softly. She nodded. I stayed too long, she said. I forgot why I wanted to leave. The pressure eased slightly. I turned back to the mother. Go, I said. The doors shifted. The platform beneath her solidified, warm light spilling outward. She clutched her child and ran, sobbing with relief. The moment she crossed the threshold, the platform changed. The remaining space darkened. The older man cried out. Please, he begged. I felt the weight inside me settle heavier. I am sorry, I said. The doors closed. The train moved. The girl and the old man were gone. Not fallen, not screaming, simply erased. I staggered back into my seat, bile rising in my throat. What did you do to them? I demanded. The man beside me finally looked at me with something like respect. You learned, he said. The train quieted. I noticed something else then, the reflections in the windows. Where once I saw only fear in my own face, I now saw something colder, more distant. The passengers watched me openly now, some with gratitude, others with hatred. They understood what I was. The next station sign flickered to life. Guide. The man stood. My heart pounded. Is this it? I asked. He nodded. My stop is next. The train slowed. The doors at the far end opened, revealing darkness deeper than any tunnel. He paused beside me. Remember, he said, this is not a punishment. What is it then, I asked. A job, he replied. The doors closed behind him. For the first time since this began, I sat alone in the seat beside the door, and every passenger on the train turned to face me. The silence after he left was heavier than anything that had come before. No instructions, no warnings, no reassurance. Just the steady rhythm of the train and the weight of every passenger watching me breathe. I understood then why he had said it was a job, not because it was simple, but because it never stopped. The first scream came from the third car. It cut through the train like metal tearing, sharp and sudden. Several passengers flinched. Others did not react at all. I felt the pull immediately, a tight pressure behind my eyes urging me to move. I stood and walked toward the sound. The doors between cars slid open without resistance. The air changed as I crossed through, colder and thicker, carrying the smell of dust and old water. A man stood near the center pole, gripping it with white knuckles. His face was streaked with tears and rage. "You did that," he shouted when he saw me. I stopped a few steps away. "I do not know you," I said. "You chose her," he said. "You chose someone else to leave. My wife was on that platform." The memory hit me like a blow. The older man with the cane, the girl who had already let go. I shook my head. "I did not see her," I said. "That is the problem," he screamed. "You did not look hard enough." The train slowed. The lights dimmed. Other passengers leaned away, creating space between us. "This is how it begins," the whispers murmured. The man lunged. Before I could react, the floor beneath his feet shifted. It softened, rippling like disturbed water. He fell hard, scrambling, clawing at nothing. "Help me," he cried. I felt the choice forming inside me. If I spoke, the train would listen. If I stayed silent, it would decide for itself. My mouth opened. I closed it again. The floor hardened. The man collapsed, sobbing, his rage spent. The train moved on. He stared at me with hollow disbelief. "You could have let me fall," he whispered. I nodded. "Yes." He turned away from me, curling into himself. The weight inside me grew. Back in the main car, the passengers no longer hid their reactions. Some avoided my gaze. Others stared openly, their expressions filled with something close to worship. This was worse than hatred. The next station came fast. The sign read "Reckon." The doors opened to a platform filled with mirrors. Hundreds of them stood upright, reflecting the train from impossible angles. I saw myself multiplied endlessly, each reflection slightly different. In some, I looked afraid. In others, calm. In a few, I did not look human at all. A voice rose from the mirrors. "Which one are you?" I stepped forward. I saw the faces of everyone who had fallen, everyone who had stayed, their reflections layered over mine. "I am the one who decides," I said. The mirrors cracked. The platform shattered into darkness. The doors closed. The train surged forward violently, as if pleased. When it steadied, something inside me had changed. I could feel the train without touching it. I knew when a passenger was about to break. I knew when a station would demand a sacrifice. I returned to my seat. A young boy sat across from me, no older than 10. He clutched a stuffed animal and stared at the floor. I felt something twist painfully in my chest. "Please," he whispered. "I want to go home." The station sign flickered. Test. I looked down at my hands. They were steady. I did not answer yet, but the train already knew I would. The boy did not look up when I sat across from him. He held his stuffed animal tightly, fingers knotted into the worn fabric, as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. The train hummed beneath us, steady and patient, waiting for me to act. I could feel the other passengers listening, not watching, listening, their attention pressed in from every direction, a silent demand for an answer I did not want to give. "What is your name?" I asked gently. He hesitated before speaking. "Lucas." "How old are you, Lucas?" "9. His voice was small but clear, too clear for a place like this. "Do you remember how you got here?" I asked. He nodded. "I was on the train with my mom," he said. "She told me not to let go of her hand, but the doors opened, and there were so many people. And then she was gone." My chest tightened. The sign above the doors flickered. Test. The train slowed. I knew what it wanted. If I chose to help him, the balance would demand something else. If I did nothing, the train would decide for me. There were rules for adults, for those who had ridden too long, for those who had already let go. There were no rules for children. The doors opened. The platform beyond was small and empty, lit by a single flickering light. It looked fragile, temporary, like it might vanish if I made the wrong choice. Lucas looked up at me, eyes wide with hope. "Can I go home now?" he asked. I stood. The weight inside me shifted, resisting. "You can," I said. The whispers erupted in protest. The train shuddered violently. The light on the platform dimmed. I took Lucas by the hand and stepped toward the doors. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the platform solidified beneath our feet. Warm air replaced the cold. Lucas squeezed my hand. "Thank you," he whispered. He ran. The moment his foot crossed the edge of the platform, the light flared brightly, then vanished. The doors slammed shut. I was thrown back into the car as the train lurched forward with furious force. The passengers screamed, not in fear, in anger. "The balance has been broken," the whispers hissed. The train howled as if in pain. The walls vibrated. Cracks spidered across the windows. I struggled to my feet. "You said there were no rules for children," I shouted. The train did not answer. The next station came immediately. The sign read, "Correct." The doors opened to a platform overflowing with people. Men, women, children, all pressed together. Their faces identical in expression. Blank. They stepped onto the train without speaking, filling every seat, every aisle. The air grew heavy. I could barely breathe. "What is this?" I demanded. "Correction," he said, his voice echoing from nowhere. Balance restored. The doors closed. The train steadied. The new passengers stared at me with empty eyes. They were alive, but something inside them was gone. I sank into my seat, shaking. I had saved one child and condemned dozens of others to something worse than death. The weight inside me changed. It was no longer teaching me, it was judging me. The sign above the doors flickered again. "Judge!" I closed my eyes. I had crossed a line I could not uncross, and the train was no longer patient with me. The judgment did not come with thunder or fire. It arrived quietly, the way guilt always does. The train moved forward without stopping. gliding past stations that no longer displayed names. The signs above the doors were dark now, blank panels reflecting my own face back at me. Every reflection showed something slightly different. In some, my eyes looked hollow. In others, too sharp, too alert. The passengers sat in perfect silence. Those who had boarded during correction did not blink. They did not breathe the way living people breathe. Their chests rose and fell, but out of rhythm, like machines following a pattern they did not understand. I tried to speak. No sound came out. I felt the weight tighten, coiling around my thoughts. This is the penalty, a voice whispered from everywhere at once. To see what you have balanced. The lights dimmed. The walls of the car dissolved into darkness, replaced by movement. Scenes unfolded around us, layered like overlapping memories. I saw the mother clutching her child as she ran into the light, relief on her face, gratitude. Then the image shifted. I saw the crowd from correct, their blank expressions frozen as the doors closed behind them. I felt their emptiness wash over me like cold water. The train was showing me the cost. You saved one, he said. You reshaped many. I clenched my fists. I did what was right, I said. Did you? He asked. The images changed again. I saw the boy Lucas in his bedroom, lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling. His mother slept beside him. Safe. But Lucas did not smile. His eyes were distant. He remembers the train, the voice said. He always will. Pain twisted through my chest. Mercy leaves scars, he continued. Balance leaves silence. The passengers began to stand. One by one, they turned toward me. Their faces shifted. Where there had been blankness, expressions formed. Fear, anger, despair. They remembered. Why didn't you choose me? One woman cried. I was ready to leave, another shouted. A man stepped closer, his eyes burning. You played God. The floor beneath me trembled. I fell to my knees. I am not a god, I said. I am just trying to survive. Survival is also a choice, the voice replied. The train slowed. The doors opened. The sign above them glowed faintly. Trial. The platform beyond was circular, ringed by shadows. Figures stood within them, indistinct but watching. This station is for those who interfere, he said. Those who believe they can guide without consequence. I stepped off the train. The moment my foot touched the platform, the doors closed behind me. The train pulled away, leaving me standing alone. The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. The shadows stepped forward. Their forms solidified. They were former guides, men and women who had once sat where I had sat. Their eyes were empty, their faces worn down by endless decisions. You broke balance, one of them said. You showed preference, another added. I swallowed. What is my sentence, I asked. They circled me slowly. To continue. My stomach dropped. Continue what? The first guide met my gaze. To ride without choosing. The platform cracked. The train reappeared beside me. The doors opened. You will feel every outcome, he said. Every loss, every mercy. I stepped back onto the train. The doors closed. The weight inside me shifted again. It was no longer judging. It was binding, and I understood then. The worst punishment was not becoming the guide. It was remaining human while doing the job. Riding without choosing was worse than I imagined. When the train resumed its endless motion, I felt the difference immediately. The pressure that once pushed me toward decisions was gone, replaced by something sharper. Awareness. Every outcome unfolded inside me at the same time, layered and relentless. When the doors opened, I felt who would leave. When they closed, I felt who would stay. I had no voice in it anymore. The passengers noticed. They watched me closely, searching my face for signs of mercy or cruelty. I had neither to offer them. I was only a witness now, trapped inside the machinery of consequence. The first station under my sentence arrived silently. The sign read, "Continue." A man stood near the doors, middle-aged, neatly dressed. His hands shook as he adjusted his tie again and again. I recognized him. Michael. We had worked together years ago. He used to sit 2 desks away from me, complaining about the coffee, about deadlines, about trains that ran late. He stared at me in disbelief. "Daniel," he said, "is that you?" My throat tightened. "Yes." Relief flooded his face. "Thank God," he said. "You can help me get off." I knew if anyone could, it would be you. I felt the outcome coil inside me like a tightening wire. "I cannot," I said. He laughed nervously. "You are joking, right?" The doors opened. The platform beyond looked ordinary. Too ordinary. Bright lights, clean tiles, a sign pointing toward an exit stairwell. Michael stepped forward eagerly. I wanted to scream the moment his foot touched the platform. The truth slammed into me. He was not leaving. The platform shifted. The lights flickered. The exit sign twisted into something unreadable. Michael turned back to me, panic flooding his face. "Daniel, what is happening?" The doors closed. The train moved. Michael screamed, not as he was taken, as he was changed. When his voice finally faded, he slumped into a seat, eyes vacant, hands still adjusting a tie that no longer existed. I felt it all, every second of resistance, every thought as he realized he was staying. The pain hollowed me out. "This is the sentence," the train whispered. "To feel without acting." More stations followed. At each one, someone I knew appeared. A neighbor from my building, a barista who knew my order, a woman I once dated briefly and never called back. Each time, hope flared. Each time, it died. The train was not punishing me with loss. It was punishing me with memory. At the next stop, the sign flickered strangely. "Home." My breath caught. The doors opened. Outside, I saw my old station, Sheridan, exactly as it had been. The familiar stairs, the smell of damp concrete, even the flickering light near the exit. My apartment key grew warm in my pocket. "This one is not real," I whispered. The train did not respond. A figure stood on the platform. Me, or something wearing my face. He smiled faintly. "You could step off," he said. "You know what happens if you do." I shook my head. "I do not choose anymore." The figure stepped closer. "That is the lie that keeps you here." The doors began to close. Did not move. The platform vanished. The train continued. I felt something inside me crack, not break. Crack! I realized then that the train was not trying to erase me. It was trying to wear me down until I stepped off on my own. And the worst part was this. I was starting to understand why others did. The longer I rode, the harder it became to remember who I had been before the train. Memories still surfaced, but they felt distant, like photographs left too long in the sun. Colors faded, edges blurred. I remembered facts about my life without feeling them. My job, my apartment, my routines, they no longer carried weight. The train carried everything now. I began to notice changes in my body. I no longer felt hunger. Sleep came in short fragments, heavy and dreamless. When I looked at my hands, they seemed slightly out of sync with my thoughts, as if they belonged to someone else and only followed my intentions out of habit. The passengers treated me differently. They no longer begged, they waited. At each station, they watched my face, searching for signs that I might break my sentence and intervene. When I did not, disappointment spread quietly through the car. The train approved. I could feel it in the way the lights steadied, in the smoothness of its motion, in the absence of screaming. The next station arrived without a sign. The doors opened anyway. A man stepped on who did not belong. I knew it instantly. He wore a conductor uniform, old-fashioned and worn, the fabric frayed at the cuffs. His cap sat low over his eyes, shadowing his face. He walked with confidence, ignoring the passengers, ignoring me, ignoring the rules. The train slowed. That had never happened before. The man stopped beside me. "You have lasted longer than most," he said. His voice was calm, familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. "Who are you?" I asked. He smiled. "I am what comes after you." Cold fear slid through me. "I am not finished," I said. He nodded. "None of us ever are." He gestured toward the front of the train. "Come see." Against my will, I stood. The car ahead was different from the others. Brighter, cleaner, almost sterile. No passengers sat inside it. Instead, screens lined the walls, each one showing a different moment from my life on the train. The first choice, the first scream, Lucas running into the light, Michael collapsing into himself, every decision replayed in perfect detail. "This is where we learn patterns," the conductor said. "Where the train learns you." I felt exposed. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you are close to crossing over," he said. "Crossing where?" He turned to face me. "From guide to fixture." The word echoed. A fixture does not choose, does not feel. It simply exists to maintain the system. I shook my head. "I am still human." The conductor raised an eyebrow. "Are you?" The screens changed. They showed me sitting silently while passengers suffered, showed me watching without intervening, showed me accepting. I saw myself from the outside, and I did not like what I saw. The train lurched violently. The lights flickered. A voice rose from the back of the car. "Daniel." I turned. A woman stood there. I recognized her instantly. "Sarah, my sister." She looked exactly as she had the last time I saw her. Alive, worried, angry. My breath caught. "This is not real," I whispered. She met my eyes. "It is real enough," she said. She stepped closer. "Mom is worried about you," she said. "You stopped answering your phone." Pain surged through me. "This is cruel," I said to the conductor. He watched quietly. "Cruelty is subjective." Sarah reached for my hand. "Come home, Daniel," she said. "Whatever this is, you can leave." The train shuddered. The doors opened. The sign appeared at last. Release. I felt the weight inside me tighten like a fist. This was the temptation, not escape. permission. If I stepped off now, someone else would take my place. Someone would always take my place. I looked at Sarah. Tears filled her eyes. "Please," she said. I hesitated, and the train waited. The doors remained open, and the light beyond them did not waver. It was not blinding. It was familiar. The color of late afternoon filtering through city buildings. The kind of light that made everything look forgiving. Sarah stood in it, her silhouette steady and human. "Come home, Daniel," she said again. I could smell the station, oil and dust and old rain. I could hear distant footsteps on concrete, ordinary sounds, ordinary promises. Behind me, the train waited. I felt its patience like a hand on the back of my neck. The conductor watched without expression. His presence was quieter than silence, heavier than noise. "If you step off," he said, "nothing changes." I turned to him. "You said this was release." He nodded. "For you and the others," I asked. He tilted his head. "Someone must remain." I looked at Sarah. Her eyes searched my face, reading the hesitation I could not hide. "What is wrong?" she asked softly. Everything I wanted to say tangled in my throat. How do you explain a place that feeds on choices? How do you describe a machine that turns mercy into currency? I took a step toward her. The weight inside me loosened, just a little. The train responded immediately. The air thickened, the lights dimmed. A low groan vibrated through the car like a warning. I stopped. I could feel it then, clearly. If I left, the balance would not disappear. It would shift. The conductor was not a jailer. He was a hinge. "How long have you been doing this?" I asked him. He considered. "Long enough to forget the first face I followed home." My stomach dropped. "You were like me." He smiled faintly. "Everyone is." Sarah reached out, her hand trembling inches from mine. "Daniel, please." The doors began to close. Not fully, just enough. A test. I remembered the first night. The last car, the man who did not blink. He had not chased me. He had waited. I turned back to the conductor. "If I stay," I said slowly, "can I change how it works?" He studied me for a long time. "Change is expensive," he said. I nodded. "I know." The doors shuddered. The light beyond them flickered. Sarah stepped closer to the edge of the platform. "If you do not come now, you may never leave," she said. She was right. I felt the truth of it settle like a final weight. Staying meant permanence. Staying meant becoming something the train could not easily replace. I took a breath and stepped back into the car. The doors closed. The light vanished. The train surged forward with a sound like relief. Sarah screamed my name once before the platform disappeared. I collapsed into the nearest seat, heart hammering, lungs burning. The conductor removed his cap. For the first time, I saw his eyes clearly. They were tired. "You chose the harder path," he said. I wiped tears from my face. "Show me how to change it." He nodded once. "Then you must stop following." The train slowed. The next station appeared. The sign read reverse. The doors opened. This platform was wrong in a different way. Instead of darkness, it was filled with movement, shadows flowing backward, figures stepping away from the train instead of toward it. "What is this?" I asked. "This is where the train learned to hunt," he said, "where it learned to wait. If I step out there, You will be seen. By what? By the ones who refuse to ride. The doors stayed open. The weight inside me shifted again, rearranging itself, not binding, aligning. I stood. The passengers watched, confusion rippling through them. For the first time, the train did not push. It listened. I stepped onto the platform. The shadows turned, and they saw me. The moment my foot touched the reverse platform, the air changed. It did not feel hostile. It felt aware. Movement flowed around me in slow currents. Shadows peeled themselves away from the darkness, taking on shapes that almost resembled people. Almost. These were not passengers. They were the ones who had noticed the train and refused it. I felt their attention settle on me like weightless hands. "You should not be here," one of them said. His voice echoed strangely, as if it had learned speech from memories instead of breath. I nodded. "Neither should you." The train remained behind me. Doors open but silent. For the first time since I had boarded, it did not follow. That was the first rule broken. "Why did you come?" another shadow asked. "To stop it," I said, "or at least slow it down." The figures shifted uneasily. "You cannot stop hunger," the first voice replied. I looked back at the train. "It is not hunger," I said. "It is habit." The platform stretched farther than it should have, bending away from the train into corridors of shadow. I walked forward, and the figures parted, watching me with suspicion and curiosity. The conductor stood at the threshold of the doors. "This is as far as I go," he said. "You are afraid?" I asked. He did not deny it. "If you succeed, the train will change," he said, "and it does not forgive those who teach it fear." I continued walking. The reverse platform began to show me things, moments frozen in the shadows. A man standing on a platform at midnight, staring at the last car and deciding not to board. A woman pulling her child back as the doors opened. A teenager feeling the pull and stepping away. These were the ones the train could not claim, the ones who remembered themselves. They became shadows because the train could no longer see them clearly. "Why are you like this?" I asked. "Because staying visible is dangerous," one of them answered. "The train learns faces, patterns, weakness." I stopped, then let it learn mine. The shadows recoiled. "That is madness." "No," I said. "It is bait." The platform trembled. Behind me, the train stirred. I felt it searching. I stepped closer to the edge where shadow met darkness. "Listen," I said, raising my voice. "You do not have to hide anymore." The figures whispered among themselves. "It will follow you," one said. "Good." The train lights flared. The doors slammed shut behind me. I was no longer between. I was ahead of it. The ground shook as the train began to move in the wrong direction, following the imprint of my presence instead of its usual path. Stations flickered into existence around me, half-formed, unstable. I could feel the train stretching, adapting, trying to understand why I was not returning to it. Pain lanced through my chest. The weight inside me resisted violently. This was not guiding. This was confrontation. I stumbled but did not fall. I thought of Lucas, of Sarah, of the countless faces that had trusted or feared me. I kept walking. The shadows followed. not hiding, watching, learning. The train roared behind me, angry now, impatient. For the first time since this began, it did not feel inevitable. It felt threatened, and I realized something terrifying. If the train could learn fear, it could also learn revenge. The train did not slow, it learned. As I walked deeper into the reverse path, the air thickened with resistance. Every step felt like moving against a current that knew my shape too well. The shadows around me trembled, their outlines blurring as the train adapted to my presence. I felt its attention lock onto me, not curiosity, hunger. The roar behind me changed pitch, lowering into something almost vocal. Metal screamed, lights flared and died. The stations forming ahead of me collapsed before they could fully exist, torn apart by the train forcing itself forward. The shadows gathered closer. "You woke it," one of them whispered. I did not stop walking. Good. The first thing the train did was call them back. Figures began to appear along the path, dragged out of the darkness as if hooked by invisible lines. Faces twisted in terror as they were pulled forward. I recognized them. People who had once stepped away. The man from the platform, the woman with the child, the teenager who had turned back at the last second. They stumbled, confused, resisting. No one escapes forever. The train seemed to say, "This is the rule it never wanted us to see," a shadow murmured. "The train cannot hunt what it cannot remember." I turned to the shadows, then let it remember me. Pain tore through my chest as the weight inside me shifted violently. The bond stretched thin, threatening to snap. The train surged. The path buckled. I fell to one knee, gasping. Images flooded my mind. Every passenger it had taken, every choice I had witnessed, every face erased. It was not showing me memories. It was showing me ownership. I pushed myself back to my feet. No! The conductor appeared beside the path, watching from a safe distance. "This is where most fail," he said. "The train will offer you a return," as if summoned by his words. The next station formed ahead of me. Perfect, clean, familiar. The sign read Sheridan. My heart twisted. The stairs were there. My street, my building, my life waiting patiently. The train slowed for the first time. The shadows recoiled. "This is the bargain," one of them said. "The last temptation." I stepped closer to the edge of the platform. The weight inside me softened. I felt how easy it would be. I could go home. Someone else would take my place. The train would continue. The suffering would not end, but it would no longer be mine. I closed my eyes and walked past the platform. The station shattered. The train screamed, not in anger, in fear. The path ahead widened, no longer resisting me. The shadows straightened. It has never been denied like this, the conductor whispered. The train accelerated wildly, tearing through space, dragging the lost back toward itself. I felt the pull on my spine. I dug my heels in. I thought of Sarah, of Lucas, of every person who had boarded believing they still had a choice. "I am not your guide anymore," I said aloud. "I am your limit." The weight inside me snapped into place. It no longer hurt. It anchored. The train slowed abruptly, forced to follow a new boundary. For the first time, it did not decide the route. I did. And far behind me, I heard something I had never heard before. The sound of the train hesitating. The hesitation did not last. The train was old, older than rules, older than fear, and like anything ancient, it adapted when challenged. The path behind me warped, folding inward like muscle tightening around a wound. The shadows cried out as space itself rearranged, forcing them closer to the rails that no longer existed, yet still pulled with terrible certainty. This is where it remembers its origin, the conductor said softly. The air grew hot, not with fire, but friction. The sound of grinding stone filled my ears as the world around us peeled back, layer by layer. I saw the beginning, not as a place, as an agreement. A crowd gathered at a station that had never been named. Men and women in clothes from different eras stood together, exhausted, afraid, desperate to get somewhere else. The first train arrived then, not metal, but intention, a promise of movement, of escape. People boarded willingly. They were not taken. They offered themselves. The train learned from them. Every fear, every weakness, every moment of hesitation. It learned that people would trade anything to leave a place they could no longer endure. That was when it became hungry. The vision shifted. I saw early guides standing where I once stood, believing they were chosen, believing they were necessary. They shaped the rules without realizing they were being shaped in return. Balance was never about fairness. It was about efficiency. The train roared again, furious now, rejecting my resistance. Cannot end what people continue to choose, the conductor said. I staggered as the weight inside me flared painfully. I am not trying to end it, I gasped. I am trying to interrupt it. The path ahead split. One direction burned with blinding motion. The train accelerating endlessly, consuming everything in its reach. The other darkened into stillness. No movement, no sound. The conductor watched me. One path returns the train to hunger, he said. The other starves it. I looked closer. The dark path was not empty. It was full of people standing still, untouched, unseen. The ones who never noticed, the ones who never boarded. If I chose that path, the train would lose its source. But so would I. I would be forgotten, unseen, unremembered. The train screamed, as if sensing my thought. You will erase yourself, it warned without words. Good, I whispered. The shadows gathered behind me, their forms steady now. This is the price, one said. To save others, you must be unchosen. The train surged one last time, trying to wrap itself around me, to pull me back into motion. I planted my feet. I thought of the first night, the last car, the man who waited. He had not followed me. He had been abandoned. I stepped towards stillness. The moment I did, the train faltered violently. Its roar fractured into dissonant echoes. Stations collapsed. Routes dissolved. Passengers froze mid-movement, suddenly unsure. The hunger starved. The conductor stared at me, awe and sorrow crossing his face. No one has ever chosen this, he said. I smiled faintly. That is why it worked. The light dimmed, the train slowed, and for the first time since it was born, it did not know where to go next. When the train lost its direction, the world did not collapse. It unraveled. Movement became optional. Sound arrived late. or not at all. The shadows that had followed me loosened, no longer pulled by routes or schedules. They drifted, uncertain, like people waking from a shared dream and realizing they were alone. The train sat behind me, immense and confused. Its lights dimmed one by one, not extinguishing, but hesitating, as if waiting for permission that would never come. The passengers were the first to change. Those frozen in motion began to breathe again. Some cried out as sensation returned all at once. Others collapsed, overwhelmed by the sudden weight of choice. I felt every one of them, not as commands, as echoes. This was the cost of starving the train. Nothing was filtered anymore. Every fear, every hope, every regret pressed against me at once. I dropped to my knees. The conductor approached slowly. "This is the aftermath," he said. "When a system built on motion is denied movement, what happens to them?" I asked. He looked at the passengers. "They wake," he said, "or they break." A woman near the door sobbed uncontrollably, clutching her head. A man laughed hysterically, unable to stop. Others simply sat in silence, staring at their hands like they had never seen them before. Freedom was not gentle. The train groaned. Metal twisted inward, folding on itself. Doors that once led to nowhere now opened onto fragments of the city. A street corner, a stairwell, a flickering station light. Exits unstable, temporary. They will not last. The conductor warned. "How many can leave?" I asked. He hesitated. "As many as you can bear." The weight surged. I understood. If I guided them out, I would feel every separation, every return to reality, every shock of memory rushing back into a mind unprepared. I stood. The first man I approached was shaking violently. "You are not dreaming," I told him. "When you step through, you will remember everything." He nodded desperately. I led him to a door opening onto a quiet street at dawn. He stepped through. I felt his relief like a blade. The second was a woman who could not stop apologizing. The third was a teenager who refused to let go of my sleeve. Each exit tore something from me. Time blurred. I do not know how many left. I only know my legs eventually stopped obeying. I collapsed against a pole as the train shuddered one final time. The last door flickered weakly. Only one passenger remained. The conductor. "You should go," he said. I shook my head. "Someone has to stay." He studied me. "You will not be remembered." "I know." The final door opened onto nothing familiar. No station, no city, just stillness. The conductor stepped toward it. "Thank you," he said quietly. He crossed. The door vanished. The train exhaled. Not a roar, a sigh. Its lights went dark. The shadows faded. I was alone. No route, no schedule, no movement, only awareness. I felt myself thinning, edges dissolving into the stillness I had chosen. This was the real ending. Not death, not escape, obscurity, and as my name slipped away, I understood the final truth. The train was never a monster. It was a mirror, and someone always had to look away first. The world adjusted quietly. That was the strangest part. There were no headlines, no emergency alerts, no sudden understanding that something vast had ended. Life simply continued, smoothing itself over the absence like water closing above a stone. People woke from dreams they could not explain. A man stood on a street at dawn, keys in his hand, unable to remember how he had gotten there. A woman sat on her couch holding a transit pass she no longer needed, tears running down her face without knowing why. The train was gone, not destroyed, forgotten. I drifted at the edge of awareness, no longer anchored to a body or a place. I could not feel the passage of time the way I once had. Moments arrived like distant echoes, soft and incomplete. I saw Sarah. She stood on the Sheridan platform one evening, staring down the tracks. Trains came and went. None stopped longer than they should. She frowned, unsettled. For a moment, she pressed a hand to her chest, as if she had forgotten something important. She whispered my name, then shook her head and walked away. I felt no pain, only a quiet release. Elsewhere, former passengers struggled to explain what they remembered. Some wrote journals filled with fragmented images, a last car, flickering lights, a voice telling them to sit down. Others avoided trains entirely, choosing long walks and crowded buses without understanding why. A few felt something stranger. They felt watched, not hunted, protected. The places where exits had opened left faint scars in the city. A stairwell that felt warmer than it should. A platform light that never quite turned off. People lingered there without knowing why, breathing easier before moving on. The hunger did not return. Without movement to feed on, it faded into something inert. The rails rusted in forgotten tunnels. Schedules lost meaning. The last car became just another car. I felt myself thinning further. Names no longer formed. Faces blurred, yet something remained. Attention! I noticed when someone stood at the edge of a platform too long, staring into the dark. I noticed when fear whispered that movement would fix everything. And sometimes I leaned closer, not to pull, to remind. The man from the street at dawn paused one night, heart racing, about to board the last car. He hesitated. He stepped back. I felt a small warmth ripple outward. This was not guidance. It was presence. Sarah dreamed of me one final time. In the dream, I was standing still while trains rushed past behind me. She did not call out. She smiled sadly. When she woke, the ache in her chest was gone. The city kept moving, but it moved differently now, less desperate, more aware of stillness. I did not exist the way I once had, but I was not nothing. I was the space where a choice could pause, and sometimes that was enough. There are nights when the city feels thinner. You might notice it if you take the last train home after a long day, when your thoughts are heavy and the platform is nearly empty. The lights hum, the air smells like metal and dust. Everything feels balanced on the edge of something unnamed. That is when I am closest. I am not a voice in your head. I am not a shadow in the corner of your eye. I do not follow you the way the train once did. I wait. I exist in the pause between one step and the next. In the moment when you hesitate before boarding. In the instinct that tells you to stay where you are just a little longer. You might feel it as unease, or relief, or nothing at all. The trains still run. They always will, but the hunger is gone. What remains is habit, momentum, the echo of something that once fed on urgency and fear. Without direction, it has become harmless. Just another machine moving people from one place to another. Sometimes, though, it remembers. A flicker in the lights, a delay with no explanation, a final car that feels too quiet. When that happens, people look down at their phones. They adjust their bags, they avoid eye contact, and then they make a choice. Most bored, some do not. I notice the ones who hesitate, the man who steps back and exhales, deciding to walk home. The woman who misses the train and laughs instead of running. The teenager who waits for the next one without knowing why. Each pause strengthens the stillness I became. Each refusal weakens the echo of what the train used to be. I do not guide. I do not judge. I remind. There is no balance to maintain now. No sacrifice required. No system demanding replacement, just movement, and the option to stop moving. Sarah still rides the train sometimes. She prefers to stand near the middle cars, away from the edges. She listens to music and watches reflections slide across the windows. Once, late at night, the train stalled briefly between stations. The lights dimmed. For a moment, she felt calm, not afraid, not sad, just aware. She smiled faintly and whispered thank you, though she could not say to whom. I felt it. That was enough. If you ever find yourself alone on a platform, staring down the tracks longer than necessary, listen carefully, not for footsteps, not for voices, for the quiet suggestion that you do not have to go anywhere right now. That is me. I am not the passenger who follows you after you get off. I am the reason you sometimes choose not to get on at all. The story ends here. Thank you for watching and listening to the whole story. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to listen to the next stories.